Everybody, welcome back to the Beyond the Peloton podcast. I'm Spencer Martin, author of the Beyond the Peloton newsletter. I'm here with Andrew Vontz from the Choose the Hard Way podcast, the Always the Hard Way newsletter, and his consultancy on podcasting, One Real Voice. And in the podcast, I gloss over it every week, but Choose the Hard Way podcast. I'm looking up right now, folks. 5 stars, 240 reviews on Apple. That's good, Andrew. We don't have those type of numbers. We don't have that 5-star rating at Beyond the Peloton. So it stands to reason, if you like Beyond the Peloton, you're going to love Choose the Hard Way because it's rated better and a lot of interesting conversations with interesting people. We're going to talk about the news of the week, a few cycling hot items, but Andrew, do you want to who have you had on Choose the Hard Way recently?
Most importantly, I had these 2 world famous cyclists that people want to hear from. I had Spencer Martin and Jonathan Kaplan on. Honestly, I think this is one of my favorite episodes that we've ever done on Choose the Hard Way. It's the live from Tucson at Pace Ranch episode of Choose the Hard Way. And yeah, we did a deep dive on Jonathan Kaplan's Normatec addiction. We're going to go into that probably in a future episode as well. The Mount Lemon controversy, seeing Lael Wilcox, Tom Danielson, Joe Gettle, so many hitters out there. And of course, Dan Swenson, the legend of the Front Range, just absolutely drilling it. So if you want to hear how we get down when we go to a training camp, check that episode out. And so much in the archives. Jens Vogt, more coming soon. I've got Art O'Connor I just recorded with yesterday, who is the strength coach for Keegan, Sophia, Chase Work, and so many others at the Gravel World Tour level. You don't want to miss it. So come check out Choose the Hard Way everywhere you listen and watch, and please subscribe and hit 5 stars. And Spencer, speaking of 5 stars, I've got a lot to talk to you about, and you may have seen that the world's favorite professional cyclist, Tadej Pogačar, had an incident with the fan this week.
Talk to you about it. Whoa.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about it because people think of Pog as a very friendly person, and as a Slovenian American myself, he's a bit of an idol to me and my family. He's starting to deal with some of the second and third order consequences of his fame. However, I think the most interesting thing about this incident is that he was so heated when he made this post on Strava that he forgot to hide his power numbers. And we then got, Strava's estimation of your power zones a bit different than what you're going to get in Training Peaks. That, to me, was the most interesting aspect of this incident, and it does confirm, or I think it supports the speculation that Pog's FTP is likely around 420 watts. Is there some symbolism in that? I don't know. I don't think Pog is puffing the Magic Dragon. Spencer, what did you think?
That though, my high school track and field mile record was 420 because the guy who said it could have gone faster, but he was so into the lifestyle that he stopped at 420 so that could be the record. Got to go back and see. Free State High. Someone, if you're listening to this at Free State High, send me a picture of the record board. Is it still 420? I would say, 420, honestly, that sounds kind of low. The only thing you should remember about these power numbers is his FTP is set at 430, and this is pretty interesting here. Wow. 22 beers burned on this ride. 430 watts is his power threshold set in Training Peaks. Interesting. This guy is cooking, by the way. That's what I took away from this. Like, you want to go for a ride with Pog and you want to weigh 65 kilos, you're going to have to be putting out, he's putting out 350 watts, just cruising. Like, that's unbelievable. I don't think people realize how fast these people are. I was noticing this on the UAE training camp was on a hill. And if you said, hey guys, you want to go ride with them? You say, yeah, that sounds awesome. You might get dropped within 5 minutes because they're just leaving the hotel, spend 350 watts, and they don't weigh very much. So you're going to be struggling to hold on. Pogačar is strong. That's what we learned from this. Were you surprised with the power numbers? What did you think about it?
The thing that doesn't make sense to me when power numbers are presented in the cycling press is they very rarely give you watts per kilo, which is the actual useful
I mean, not necessarily
information.
though. Like if you're on the flats, it's not really watts per kilos isn't so important. It's really on the climbs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of course thinking about when I'm in the world tour later this summer, what is it going to take for me to
Yeah.
keep up
Well,
when,
yeah, and you also, if
right?
you weigh 100 kilos, like we see some people do, and you're putting out, if you're Booger McFarland on your Peloton and you're doing 400 watts, you shouldn't say like, I could go to the Tour de France, because it's like, well, you weigh over 100 kilos. So that's gonna affect you at some point, probably.
I think it's going to affect you everywhere. In fact, I was thinking about this yesterday after my conversation with Art O'Connor, who, in addition to being a world-class strength and conditioning coach, is also an ultra endurance fat bike winter racer. He's done things like the Idita bike. And this kind of blew me away. Late in the interview, Spencer, he made the astonishing suggestion that he would like to come to Tour de Tucson this fall to ride for me. And he's large. He's 215 pounds with a high FTP. And he said he could probably put in a very strong first hour. We know what the first hour was like. I am very excited by this proposition. And then the next thing I thought was, how much weight do I need to lose to be able to stay with the group I think I need to be in to get over Pistol
I don't
Hill?
think you need to lose any weight. I don't think Pistol. I don't
Okay.
think. I think power. I think the only thing you should worry about for Tour de Tucson is power. I don't think, unless you're 100 kilos. I don't think those climbs are significant enough for watts. And you're going so fast. Just stay in that group. It's about positioning. I would say more than watts per kilo on those specific climbs. But if Tadej Pogačar is 64 kilos doing 450 watts, imagine how much trouble you're in if you're, let's say you're Matthew Van Der Poel and you're also, your threshold is 450 watts. This is where it starts to get tough for everybody, because a lot of people are heavier than him, and even the best guys are just as strong as him, but they're way heavier. So how do you beat him? Because he's lighter than you. He's going to drop you on any climb, and you can't punish him on the flats, because that's usually what happens to smaller riders with good watts per kilo. They get punished on the flats because they can't do the raw power of someone like Filippo Ganna. But if Pogačar is the same threshold as Filippo Ganna, it's probably actually lower. I bet Ganna's is higher. It makes it hard to punish him. So that is a component there that makes this really tough for the rest of the sport. But Andrew.
Yeah, and Spencer, remember that Cam Jones at 83 kilos has roughly the same FTP as Pog. He's around 420 to 450. So yeah, to your point, he's not going to be having a good day once they go up a mountain.
There? How's he going to drop on the flats if they're just as strong as each other? And then he's going to get dropped on the climbs. And I think that puts their, because both Cam Jones and Tadej Pogačar, their zone 2 rides are at like 320 to 350 watts, which is crazy to think about. This happened on the Costa Blanca. If you look at his ride on Strava, it's really a strange ride. So he's in Valencia. He goes south. If you've ever been south of Valencia, it is, the coastal road it's a marsh. So it's so flat. There's almost no elevation gain for 60 miles. He just rides along the coast, and then he starts climbing like around the area where the team training camp was, and then stops. Why was he in Valencia? He's not racing. Like, it's something you've noticed is Remco Evenepoel's winning everything because nobody else, there's no other major riders racing right now. Why was he here?
Specialty.
What was this trip to Spain about?
And he was nowhere near
altitude. And then he finished the ride in a place where you may want to do a training camp. My best guess is he flew to Valencia, and he was at the velodrome in Valencia doing aero testing. I know they do a lot of testing on that's how they do their setups for the year. You rent a day at the velodrome, test it, and then maybe he rode back to the hotel from there. If you thought the power was interesting, I thought, why is he doing one-way rides from Valencia to a non-altitude training camp? In his altitude, the team was pretty down on altitude when I was there. They seem to think altitude's the old shit. We're doing the new shit. That's training at sea level. Not exactly what they said. I'm paraphrasing, but I do think it's interesting that they're going away from altitude training.
Spencer, I think there are two factors here that we need to consider. Number one is, another theory is that the reason he was doing this one-way ride is because he was going to speak at a crypto
Could
conference.
be. Valencia, well-known crypto center. And I mean, what time of the day? This is why you should never share. We're just abusing the power here. Yeah, 3 p.m. is when he started. So yeah, maybe it was a keynote lunch speech, and then he left the conference, rode back to the hotel. That's probably what happened. Solved.
Oh, wow. Okay, so there are several cryptocurrency and blockchain focused conferences coming up in Valencia. I don't know. Unfortunately, I'm not able to access the archives, but on February 20th. Wow. What was the date of this ride?
This was February 11th.
Okay. There's actually a lot of action around cryptocurrency, AI, and machine learning in Valencia. I don't know. Is there a major university there?
It's a pretty big town, and there's a big university, and big velodrome. Probably could be more pertinent than the crypto conference, but we can't rule it out.
Well, yeah. Well, Pog,
there's also a big airport, we should say, which would be a reason why you're there.
Yeah. Pog, don't brush this off. Pog is now a crypto kingpin with his big Eminem styled announcement of he's just, you know what I love about Pog? He's almost Tom Brady level vanilla. He's just surface area for sponsors. I don't think he cares at all.
Tell me what
he might. I wonder if he could get. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if he got a Katusha sponsorship. Katusha, of course, was a Russian rocket company.
Yeah,
right.
But then they transitioned. Remember, then they were an apparel company. By the end, they were making
very
apparel. Natural. That would not fly now. A team just sponsored by a Russian rocket company. Well,
I don't know.
You don't know.
I'm not
Russia's
so
not
sure.
even in the Olympics. If the IOC says...
I mean, this is professional cycling. There's a different set of rules.
If the IOC says you're too problematic to be in the Olympics, I don't know if... I mean, what the...
Then come on over to professional cycling.
The real answer is pro cycling does whatever the IOC wants, which is why the Russian team got shut down. How would you...
All right, Spencer, sorry, I have to ask you a final question here. So on this day, I have not cross-checked this on Strava. Do we know Alan Lim's whereabouts, number one? And number two, when you look at the ride file, are there any indications this may have been motor paced on the Scratch
Definitely
Labs?
Looks motor paced to me.
Scooter.
Yeah. I was just going to ask you that. I'm pretty sure this was motor paced. Was it Alan Lim? We do not know. I've not seen him in the last few days. We don't know where he is. He could be. It could have been Alan. It could have been Alan Lim. We can't rule it out. I actually am pretty curious about this ride. I mean, did someone? It's possibly flew in and then had someone meet him there with a bike, a car, gets changed and then rides while motor pacing a scooter, or maybe the car back to the team hotel. That's big time. That's impressive.
I'm thinking more that they had a C5 Galaxy, a military multi-prop transport plane. They flew over there, they land, they have Alan Lim and his scooter inside the plane. This is like a tank coming off the plane. Alan comes right down the tail in the scooter. Pog's behind him, just maximal efficiency, and then they're off. I mean, we're way off topic here. I will throw this out, though, because I haven't really disclosed this publicly, but I do have a fantasy about motor pacing. It's never been part of my lifestyle. And I'm wondering...
Such a fun... probably the Bay or the East Bay is probably not a great motor pacing environment, I would say.
I've never lived anywhere that I feel would be suitable to motor pacing. Even Columbia, Missouri, definitely not. Too many rolling hills. Lawrence, I feel like, would actually be great for motor pacing. You need a gravel motor pacing.
Yeah, I don't like you're just getting rocks spit up into your face. Motor pacing in Lawrence, if we're gonna investigate this, the only thing about Lawrence that sketches me out is Lawrence, Kansas, for people that don't know. In theory, the riding's really good. If you just got rid of all the cars, it'd be awesome. But the roads, a lot of times there's no shoulder and there's no culture of cycling. So they're kind of annoyed you're on the road. And I do find myself very sketched out when I go back. But if you had a rolling enclosure, I heard that Isaac del Toro's in Ensenada, Mexico, which is just south of San Diego. Every time he goes for a ride, the local police give him a police escort. and he has motor pacing on every ride. Can you imagine the luxury of that? But that's what you would need in Lawrence to safely go on a ride, I think, on the road.
Well, that's similar to
He
what
just has a moto
Carapaz
guy,
has.
though.
Yeah, Spencer, last week I sent you some information about Gravel Pro and Ultra Runner Heather Jackson, previous guest on Choose the Hard Way, who crashed at the shootout in Tucson. It looked like a very bad crash as well. And it brought up this question of risk versus benefit in competitive group ride environments. Then I, of course, thought of Quinn Simmons.
Because he did El Tour, or because he's on the shootout?
He's on the shootout. I think he's probably always at the very front, so there's a very low
I've actually seen
probability that Quinn's going to end up.
I've done a lot of group rides in my life. I've seen very few crashes. I actually don't know how big the risk is.
You didn't live in Los
What
Angeles.
is going on in LA? Like, what? Like, people need to get a grip. Like, they also do, like, your big ride is around a soccer training area. And my cousin used to regale tales of how they would try to kick soccer balls into the group ride and crash people. So, yeah.
Yes, at the Rose Bowl. And when you're going around the soccer field at the Rose Bowl, that's when the ride, there's a slight downhill on when you're going south on the circuit next to the soccer fields, and usually going 30 to 35 miles an hour. And yes, very common to have a soccer ball come in from soccer practice and land in the middle of the peloton. And that's not to mention people with baby strollers, rollerbladers, not highly predictable in my experience. I don't know if that's still going on in 2026 or if that
I saw some
rollerbladers
rollerbladers out at Valmont the other day, so could be maybe off-road rollerblading is coming in. Gravel.
That's
gravel
incredible.
blading. I would say, actually, I thought Heather's comment on it was pretty interesting on Instagram, where she's about the balance between, because you can get a lot of good training, quality training with these group rides. There is a risk. Probably, if we just crunch the numbers, Quinn Simmons being in Tucson doing the shootout probably is, even setting the risk of crashing aside, probably not as ideal as being in a, like all these guys are on the Costa Blanca. I also think the story no one's talking about is people have just stopped racing. Good riders just don't race these early season races anymore. They just spend all their time at these super dedicated training camps where they have cars out there helping them. Like, they're doing group rides, but just with top professionals. That probably is better for you as in terms of training and safer. You're probably less likely to crash with a bunch of World Tour cyclists versus being on the shootout with like young Jimbo trying to lock bars with Quinn Simmons to prove. Because I remember going on rides with Ted King on the bus stop ride and being like, I'm going to give it to this guy. But like, that's not good for Ted King. You shouldn't have some idiot being like, I'm gonna pin Ted King against the barriers in the final sprint of the bus stop. Probably not great for a World Tour professional.
Probably not. I did see that Unibet Rockets are in Valencia currently, and they put out a video about their training camp. The facility looked incredible. I, of course, thought about the December great gathering of Beyond the Peloton by Choose the Hard Way by Riding With, likely to take place in Alicante if we can get Jonathan out of the Normatex for the flight. And one thing that struck me, Spencer,
costing Tadej Pogačar in December 2026.
Yeah, something that struck me though about the pro cyclist lifestyle is when you watch these videos now, it's just people eating a lot of
porridge.
A lot of porridge, a lot of white bread, and then the actual meals, and this might not be the case everywhere. It won't be the case where we're staying. It looked like college dorm food in like 1998. I was just, it made me think about like being a farm animal, actually, just being stuck in one of these environments for an entire year.
It's funny, is UAE told me one of the big problems they have is hotel food in Spain. Like, the hotels will be really nice, and the food often is not great, so they try to bring their own. If you can, you bring your own chef, and they're cooking the food up. Yeah,
I do that. Yeah, Just like we did at Pace
usually
Ranch.
do that. I would say, I was hitting up the omelet bar. Like there was good options if you can, but maybe they have certain diet restrictions where they don't want them eating that before training.
Yeah, a lot of going to the scale to weigh the food. And
you could imagine Simon Yates being at that camp. I did think about this, and that's your diet, and you're thinking, maybe I could not do this. Maybe I don't have this in me.
Yeah. You're thinking about what went down at Space in Ibiza back in November 2025.
Close. It's just right across the sea right there. I could go back.
Right.
I'm out, guys. He's got a skiff. He's going to Ibiza.
Yeah.
He's gone. Simon's escaped. So did you watch these Remco Evenepoel races over the weekend, the Remco cycling?
They almost seem like post-Tour de France criterion.
So, that's a little harsh, but you are kind of onto something. And same thing with women's. There was the first stage of a Valencia. I also loved, the more you pay attention, every early season race is just in and around a place where there would be a training camp, so it makes it easy for people to go. Where Demi Vollering just rides off the front, but then I've never even heard of the riders finishing second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. It just seems like the more early season racing we get, the less star-packed it is, because the stars are realizing, actually, I want to be at a training camp. But Volta Valenciana, Remco Evenepoel, the time trial is neutralized, and he says, not a problem. Rides away on a stage that I did not think was going to be hard enough for him to do it. Just drops Almeida, Brandon McNulty. See you later, guys. I think Riley Sheehan finished 9th. So it tells you it's not like, it was a great ride from Riley. Probably going to have a great year. But it tells you that not a mountain stage. Remco's won 6 races in a week and a half. People are freaking out. This guy's going to win the Tour de France. I would be of the opinion, though, has Remco Evenepoel showed us anything that we didn't already know? It's like, he didn't attack. He just rode away. And it's like, yeah, that works well when you can do that. But what happens when you're riding against people who you can't ride away from? What will you do then, Remco? And to me, that question's not been answered. I'm not any more confident in him beating the best of the biggest races. But he might have a great season on Red Bull, though. I'm actually surprised how well that team looks, gelling around him.
Spencer, I'm going to jump backwards here for a minute, because something that just popped up that might answer the mystery of why was Pog doing this specific route. It looks like he's testing a new Colnago TT bike. So you may have hit the nail on the head. Flat route, velodrome, this all makes
definitely
sense.
At the velodrome doing the aero testing. It's pretty interesting to watch them do that. I mean, it must actually kind of suck for the rider. Like, you just change your position every lap, and then they have all these computers that test like your CDA and how efficient it actually is for you to be pushing power in that position. Pretty interesting. And please invite us next year today. We would love to go. Yeah.
Right. And Remco is saying he's not avoiding anyone. I think they're avoiding you, Remco. They're not coming to the races because they're testing their TT bikes, because Remco, of course, does have that slight edge in time trials. It is kind of
funny that the Mr. Time Trial himself is just out there on his road bike. He did the TT on his road bike, and then everyone else is away testing their TT position on the real TT bikes. He's not even sweating it. He says TT bikes, those are tired. Wired is riding your road bike. I also think that proved definitively, why do we have TT bikes? That TT went pretty well. Why don't we just have them do TTs on the road bikes? And you would think for a rider, instead of testing your TT bike, just testing the most aero position in your road bike would be pretty good for you. Like, why are we doing this TT? Not to open old wounds for people, but I don't quite understand why we're doing these separate bikes for the TT in an era of very fast road bikes. So Remco's not avoiding anyone. We should, that is something that is true. That is a statement, I feel like, per Hadley in Parks and Rec. That is a statement that is true from Remco. He is showing up to races. Did you see what happened? UAE Tour. He was supposed to show down against Jonas Vingegaard. Jonas pulls out because of his crash, that he didn't get that. So Jonas crashes on a descent because of a fan, according to Visma. Not really, though, because the guy was far enough behind him, he didn't even see him crash, and he came upon him and tried to help him, and then Jonas got mad at him and then posted on social media, people should stay away from him. Very nice. And then, according to Visma, he's not hurt at all. But then, according to Visma, he's skipping UAE Tour because of the injuries sustained in the crash. If you crash on your face downhill, you probably are not feeling amazing. So I guess that's why he skipped the race. while this is happening, his coach leaves because he's not able to apply the creativity and passion he wants into the project. What is going on at Visma, Andrew? And then, so now he will have one race. He will have the, what is it? The Tour of Catalunya, Vuelta Catalunya, or do they use the Catalan name for that? But I could not find a single rider that just did a one-week stage race and then showed up to the Giro and won it. So I'm a little concerned about that. But what is happening at Visma?
Yeah, the thing that I immediately think about is, as far as we know, he is not working somewhere else yet, correct?
No, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be in the future, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think he absolutely will work somewhere else. There's clearly something weird going on, and we can talk about what that might be, although it will be speculation. What I think is, because of whatever this mysterious thing is that is likely not him running out of passion and creativity, I think that, setting aside whatever the challenge might be, if I'm a lower budget team, I'm immediately hiring this guy. So I'm wondering if we see him go to Unibet Rockets, or I wonder if George's team potentially picks him up for pennies on the
Well,
dollar and gets one of the best.
I think when he said I'm not able to apply the passion and creativity I want, it meant I'm not able to take amazing vacations on the pay that I'm getting from Visma, and I sense another team might be dropping a bag. If I had to guess, I would say that
Okay.
Red Bull might be backing up the Brinks truck to hire this guy.
I don't know. I'm wondering if maybe something's going on that might create a bit of a reputational challenge inside the sport, or coupled with Yates's departure, maybe if someone's being blamed and shoved out the door, going through the moon door.
Maybe. Well, why, if you're a communications professional, why did that statement come out like that? Would you have written it with that weird, vague language?
Here's what I'm wondering is, if he had just left and no one said anything, would we ever know that this happened?
No, we never would have known this happened.
Yeah. And you're more plugged in behind the scenes with World Tour people. Is it fairly common for these high performance experts and coaches to move around quite a bit,
but
or not?
Right. It's like Simon Yates. I mean, do people change teams? Do people retire? Yeah, but they don't do it at the start of the season. Like, why? I don't know why this is happening now. To me, that's the weirdest part. That and the statement, which I probably would not have structured the statement that way. And you're right. Like, why make a statement at all? What if he just leaves? I mean, if he's poking around, I guess the thing is, if he leaves, they make no statement. He's then going to be going to other teams and saying, I want to work for you. And then if that gets out, but I would say cycling journalism is not, I mean, I don't think this is a controversial statement, not as robust as it once was. It's almost like things don't get out unless you want them to. So, because there's nobody poking through your trash. You don't have David Walsh dressed as Oscar the Grouch in your trash can looking for stuff. I don't think anyone really would have dug into it. I don't think they would have noticed. Maybe some Reddit fan would have noticed, and then that's kind of weird. But you just said, oh, he was juggling too much personally and professionally, and he stepped away to spend more time with his family. Who knows if I have the Rams coach. He now has a family, but he didn't have a family, and he was like, I might step away to spend more time with his family, like to gain leverage in a contract negotiation. It's like, he doesn't even have a family. What he's talking about, the family that I may have one day I want to spend more time with, and that's why I'm leaving. But I thought the statement was really strange.
Yeah. Part of what's jumping out at me about this statement, and I'm thinking about what I do in my consulting practice, One Real Voice, because what works now in the communication environment in 2026 is being real. And clearly what's happening with this statement, with Yates's departure, and these if you're going to say something real, because I think people smell something that's fake a mile away. And just the way that they executed this, it almost feels like 1980s to me. And I also, within these organizations, I can imagine exactly what happened because I've been in a lot of situations where this is a crisis for this team. And everyone inside the team, and I'm sure that there is someone in particular who's panicking and they want to try to frame this and control the narrative. And there's probably a lot of pressure just to put out a statement when the move really probably, I mean, with Yates, you do kind of have to say something, but if he
That would
can't
be hilarious.
interact
Just
with the
didn't
journalist,
say anything.
well, I mean, like the move typically is like you place a lead steer story. So you have Simon Yates go on the record with the journalist he's comfortable with, and he explains why he's actually doing this in a conversation where you have him go on a podcast. You have him go on Geraint Thomas's podcast. Geraint Thomas is going to, even Geraint Thomas, I think, is going to probably have some pretty serious questions. If he's really leaving for the reasons that he specified and he's no longer in the sport, I'm not sure what reputational damage Simon Yates is going to face. And I think it probably makes him and the team look better because you're not putting out a bizarre statement that no one believes. And then everybody's wondering if something nefarious happened.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Here's a quote from the Cop Over Cop podcast. Love that name. But the former pro says, maybe this is talking about Jonas Vingegaard's coach. His name is Tim Hermskek. Maybe he sensed he can no longer keep up with the strict way of working he himself introduced. Pretty funny.
Right.
But yeah,
I read that.
Could just be that. But with Yates, I do wonder if they worry if he gets in the bear pit of the Geraint Thomas podcast where the real journalism happens. But the thing about Geraint, though, is he has a way of, he's like very disarming. And I could see him being like, mate, you were making so much money. Why would you leave that? And it's just, do they not feel comfortable with a free flowing conversation where Simon might, I don't know. I don't know how actually friendly that would be, since Geraint knows I don't think a lot of people are aware of like the money he's leaving on the table by retiring. And if Geraint starts poking at that, then it kind of hurt. I don't know. It could hurt their story of, oh, he was just sick of it and he stepped away, because he is leaving a lot of money on the table. And Geraint might say, why are you doing that? Maybe just finish the year out. And he'd say, I guess all you have to say is my heart wasn't in it. And I didn't feel fair to the team.
Yeah. And I think this goes back to the narrative they're advancing is clearly fake, right? Because if that were really the case, if he truly were fed up and truly wanted to walk away from the sport and had just had enough, or got to camp and said, this is my 5,000th day sequestered at a hotel and I'm eating the same meal for the 600th time, and I just don't want to do this anymore because actually I just need a break, and that's what I need for my mental health. And I'm going to go to Ibiza, and I'm going to go to space. I'm going to hang out with Carl Craig at Pasha. Okay. We know Geraint Thomas likes to talk about Ibiza. In the absence of that, it just seems super, super weird. And at some point, the story is going to come out as well. So you just have to think that something actually went down. These two people didn't just leave.
What do you say to the haters who say the team just no fun and that's why they're leaving?
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about the interview the conversation rather, I just put out this week on Choose the Hard Way, which is with Jeff Troche, who's one of the world's leading mental performance and skills coaches. He's worked with people who've won, players and coaches who've won Super Bowls, World Series, NBA championship titles, all 4 tennis Grand Slams. And one of the things we talked about was this exact topic, which is, and Spencer, you and I have talked about this, if you're going to be a world tour cyclist, and there's all this conversation now about the totalizing lifestyle it requires, well, guess what? If you're the very best in the world at anything, it's a completely imbalanced lifestyle. It's not healthy. And a lot of the time, it's not very fun. And that's the job. And it's not for everybody. So at a certain point, people don't want to do it anymore, that's fine. But to do the job is to do a lot of extraordinary things that by definition are simply not normal and that the average person can't handle. And no matter how much a team like Visma talks about, and I'm sure actually does care about the whole human, there are just certain things you have to do to live this life, and not everybody's about that life.
They're doing crazy stuff over there. It's definitely not fun. If you think that they're having fun, they're not having fun at Visma. And I was about to say, no team in pro cycling is having fun, but I was just having a conversation with the manager saying, in fact, some teams might be having too much fun, and is the reason they do not perform very well.
Yeah, and yes, I don't think it's going on so much anymore. If you talk to people from cycling's bygone era, not too long ago, I mean, we know at the Vuelta, the riders used to go out
party. Even
like get wasted till 3 a.m. or Jens Vogt. When I was doing research before I had Jens on my podcast, he had a story he told somewhere else about being at, I guess it was Team CSC at the time, because he was riding for Bjarne Riis. And one of the directives Bjarne gave the team, because I guess a lot of riders on the team actually smoke cigarettes, and he told them, hey, that's fine, I just don't want you doing it in public. So could you imagine in,
really
2026?
It's fine, just don't do it in public.
Yeah, and Jens actually talked about, I don't know who his roommate at the time was, but they were at training camp, and CSC famously, I don't know if you remember this, but they had Danish Special Forces take them out, and they did like a week-long hell week that actually sounded extremely challenging. And Jens talked about how following that, and he's in the room with his roommate, who was one of the best cyclists in the world, and the guy said, hey, Jens, do you mind if I smoke in here?
Funny. Yeah, I don't think that is. I was more referring to, instead of doing this camp, I'm just going to stay home and game a little bit. I think that's now the fun.
I think totally.
I'm just going to get on some Fortnite. I don't know if people play Fortnite anymore. Now you have me. I just saw an article pop up. Tadej Pogačar leaks his outstanding power numbers. Threshold power estimated up to 450 watts. These are people like diving into his power number from his ride. I know Kip is freaking out saying he's ruined. He'll never win another race now because people know his power numbers. Oh no. Oh yeah, no. Totally. It's like, well, okay.
I'm just going to take it up to 380 for
I didn't
another
know
5
he was
minutes.
doing 450. If I knew that, I wouldn't have been dropped. So yeah, this changes nothing, but kind of interesting because during the tour, I estimate power. I have a little calculator where I can estimate people's power for every major climb. And during the tour, like on Oticom, stage 12, I was estimating his power at 450 watts for that climb. And just to put that into perspective, he weighs like 64 kilos during the tour. That's 7 watts per kilo for 40 minutes. When he won the tour in 2020, that he did like 6.8 watts per kilo for a 20-minute climb first week on, I believe it was Parasord. Broke away, basically wins the race on that early climb because he gets away and gets a gap, and then he wins the tour by a small gap. And this was considered impossible to do 7 watts per kilo for 20 minutes. Now, people are estimating his threshold power at 7 watts per kilo. As recently as 2021, 6 watts per kilo for an hour was considered the gold standard. So I think 450 maybe is a little high, especially if we see, let's look at the stage 13 time trial this year. Oh my God, he did 480 watts for the 20-minute climb on the time trial. Oh wow. But like Plateau to Dubai last year or 2024, he did 40 minutes, 447 watts. So yeah, so maybe, let's just say his threshold is between 445 and 450 watts. He's working with roughly a 7 watt per kilo FTP. And Mount Lemmon, the KOM, under perfect conditions, Lionel Sanders said what his power was like 5.5 watts per kilo, adjusted for sea level. So in real life, it was lower than that. And Lionel Sanders is very fast. That shows you what we're dealing with here and why this guy wins so many races.
Yeah, I'm now trying to pull up Cam Jones's All right. So Cam Jones, because people, of course, are wondering, what do these numbers look like at the
I mean, Cam
Lifetime Grand
Jones is
Prix?
an
The
is an
world's,
outlier, let's say. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Cam Jones estimated at Unbound 2025 to weigh 83 kilos, average speed 23.5 miles for 8 hours and 37 minutes, normalized power 327. So that puts him at, I don't know if this watts per kilo math is
It'd be like
correct.
4 watts per kilo but how long was the race?
The race was 8
Yeah.
hours and
Jeez.
37 minutes. So his normalized power. Okay, this calculator is saying 3.5 watts per kilo. That
Well, for
sounds
8
off to me.
hours. And if you weigh 83
Yeah,
kilos.
right.
Well, the thing is, the heavier you get, the less watts per kilo you have to do to go to the same speed. So Filippo Ganna doesn't have to do the same watts per kilo as Tadej Pogačar to go the same speed up a climb.
Yeah, well, this is the thing people don't know about Unbound. In that, whatever, it's 200 miles and change, somebody's going to freak out. It's because it's 202.5 miles. And they want credit for every inch and foot of that course because we use American measurements. He was in a breakaway for 150 miles in the race, and there are roughly 10,000 feet of climbing in Unbound, which people tend to not be aware of. So you might want to say something like, wow, that sounds a lot harder than the tour.
I'm not going to say that. Well, but
okay, so
but
I think before we go, we should shout out the Shakeout ride.
The climbing is not all created equal, and if you're at Unbound and it's rolling hills, it's a different tax than like a 40-minute. Also, we should say when they're doing a 40-minute alpine climb, that's like an hour and a half. If you're going hard for a normal person, watts per kilo matter more there than they do at. I'm not shocked Cam Jones won Unbound at 83 kilos with that much climbing because you're building it up. Like you're getting to that number by just rolling over hills. So you're not quite as penalized for being heavy as you would if you were on a mountain like at Leadville where Keegan reigns supreme. But you should say, like we were talking about Quinn Simmons last week. I looked this up. At Lombardia, his normalized power for 6 hours was 390 watts. And he's like 72 kilos. So for 6.5 hours, he's doing as much as Lionel Sanders is for the Lemon KOM. And Andrew, just tell us a little bit about your Shakeout Ride World Tour.
Yeah, before I jump into talking about the Shakeout Ride World Tour, which is perhaps the most exciting thing on the 2026 cycling calendar, including the Tour de France, I just wanted to point out Cam Jones, because we need to go a little bit deeper on Cam. Love his riding style. He hasn't publicly stated his official FTP number, but he did publish a power file and some test results prior to doing the Festive 500, which he did in one day. I believe maybe the day after Christmas, maybe on Christmas. I don't think it was on Christmas. And his FTP is probably around somewhere between 420 to 450 watts. The difference between him and Pog, of course, is about 22 kilos. So we put Cam in the Tour de France, and he's in the Gruppetto when they're going up one of the climbs Spencer just mentioned. I still think Cam should be in the World Tour, and I think that a smart Moneyball team should take a very close look at him. I think he's likely to have a huge gravel season, and I think he could be formidable on the road with the right team and some great direction. And speaking of great direction, something I did want to share with the community is that the adult contemporary gravel Shakeout Ride World Tour is now starting to take shape. And May 28th is a date you may want to circle on your calendar. It sounds like Spencer may not be able to make it, but you should send him a DM or an email or a physical letter, whatever you prefer, to get him on board, because we need a bit of that Tucson Pace Ranch training camp magic to go down on May 28th. Where will we be? We will be in Emporia, Kansas. Will we be doing the Unbound 100, where I twice placed second and no longer believe I could probably place higher than 300th? No. Will we be doing the 200? No, we won't be doing the 200. We won't be out there with the thousands of people who are changing their lives through that achievement. What we will be doing is the Adult Contemporary Gravel Shakeout Ride World Tour. And on May 28th, we'll be going dusk to dawn, cycling through the different shakeout rides that are taking place at Unbound. This is a chance to meet some of the biggest names in cycling, professional cycling, and cycling content creation, journalism, writing, some of the biggest minds and thinkers in the space. Art O'Connor, who I mentioned, WooCar Fit, strength trainer to some of the biggest names in professional gravel, mountain bike, road, is likely to be there, and he'll likely be on one of these rides. And we have a lot of other special guests in the work. We may have Ben Davis from Golden, Colorado joining us. That's not certain, but it is possible. Spencer will be jammed up with Giro coverage, but we are looking into a Starlink backpack, so he potentially could just port in live from one of these rides. And Jonathan Kaplan may be taking those Normatechs onto a Spirit flight and then into the back of a minivan for the 3-hour drive from MCI, Kansas City International Airport, to Emporia. The really tricky thing to figure out right now, number one, on the evening of May 27th, will I get invited to the Scratch House and finally have a meal cooked by Bijou and Alan Lim? This has been a life goal of mine. I've seen the videos. I see the vibe. I don't think that I can get to that level with my own meal. So Alan and Bijou, if you're listening, or anyone from the Scratch universe, I'm open to an invite. And the other question is, how do we get Spencer out there? And could we potentially have motor pacing live during the full day of group rides? I'm estimating that this will be about 100 miles. So if you're going to be there, let me know. You can shoot me a DM at Hardway Pod. Any encouragement to get Spencer out there back in the Great Plains where he actually belongs, not in Boulder.
You will never
be much appreciated.
This event. But Andrew, what is a shakeout ride? I'm going to pretend to be a stupid person right now, and I don't know what a shakeout ride is. What is it?
I think it's something that was invented, maybe modeled after run clubs, and the idea is that you're just going to go out and spin your legs a day or two prior to taking on the event of your life. And what it really is it's injecting this massive vector of risk by being out in a large group, riding on gravel, and I would bet some of these get a bit competitive.
I thought this was...
go ahead.
Let's say free-range cattle, that people just were doing this, and they might see each other. But I looked at the schedule you sent. It looks like they're actually organized events by brands.
Yeah, this is what happens when Spencer shows up to an event like SBT and then elects not to have the full experience.
It's just unfortunate. Actually, I just couldn't get into that race.
Yeah, at SBT that year, they actually didn't have any shakeout rides because of the controversy there in Routt County. Cyclists were getting, no joke, I believe someone got shot at.
The whole vibe was very unpleasant and unwelcoming.
Yeah, just what you want when you're spending several $1,000s and traveling for a full day to get to an event in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, the main thing with the shakeout ride, I'm looking into this. I think that the vibe is, people are really into the kerchief, the bandana that's tied around the neck like you're a Yosemite Sam in the Wild Wild West when you're out there graveling. I'm thinking it's time to introduce that 60-plus master who typically is riding in the neon yellow Pearl Izumi full-length windbreaker, who is just kicking your ass on the group ride and dropping you, who also has the head sweat with like the fake bandana tail. I think that that's probably the aesthetic for this ride. And maybe, I don't know, maybe a buff. There might be some custom merch for a limited number of people who join this exclusive
And I do
community.
love the idea of showing up to an ultra expensive event and just not doing the event. I think this is a movement that could catch on. I also think, and I'm not joking, in 3 or 4 years, you're going to have to, this is an experience you're going to have to pay for. It's going to be an add-on, like Shakeout, pre-ride, pre-event rides are going to have to be paid for, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I bet that there are marketing managers at cycling and lifestyle brands around the world who, no joke, they probably spent a full year thinking about, what's the hydration at this shakeout ride? What kind of signage are we going to have? How can we make them really excited about our electric tire inflator, our sealant, whatever the case may be? And the competition is fierce. I mean, how many of these can Ben Delaney
I know.
actually be
That's
at?
what I was thinking. I don't think Ben can do them all. He's got to pick one. The start money for these shakeout rides has to be massive, I would imagine. Ben is feeding his family on shakeout ride start fees. I'm sure of it. Well, and I'm just thinking of, is there anything where we've not covered with the shakeout? I think we've got it covered. People are excited. Also, the unsexy part of doing a daily newsletter and podcast about a race is you have to watch the race. That's the big problem with this. And the shakeout rides probably are going to take place during the race, I would imagine.
They are likely to take place during the race. However, because I think they literally go from dusk until dawn, I think, and this is what I'm encouraging people to do. This is not supposed to be onerous. This is actually just supposed to be a fun way. We would like to meet more of you, I think, potentially. And we've had a lot of fun getting to know some of our listeners and going out and doing some of these events. And you don't have to do all 15 shakeout rides. I might not even do all 15. I probably will do at least 100 miles of these rides because I just think it would be funny. And I'm not sure anyone has done this specific high concept before.
Like a fastest
and I will be making content about it.
All the shakeout rides combined. Yeah.
Yeah. But just come out and do one. So Spencer eventually is going to cave, even though he's being highly resistant. We're going to get him out there. And maybe he does one shakeout ride following the conclusion of the Giro and recording his other
Where
podcasts.
Are you going?
Maybe that's how it goes down.
Staying?
I didn't mention that. I said I'm looking for an invite to dinner at the Scratch House. This is the really sticky wicket here. I think worst case scenario, I get up at 4 a.m. in Kansas City. I borrow my mom's car. I drive to Emporia. I shake out ride all day, and then I leave because I'm not sure I need to be in Emporia, Kansas for that evening, other than for the dinner at the Scratch House.
That is truly the darkest timeline. Hold on 1 second. I do have to go, but we have to get to the bottom of this. I think we could get you in a hotel. So Topeka, Kansas, 1 hour away. But let's see the southernmost reach of Topeka. Let's look for hotels here. We can get you at where the 470 meets 335. Travelers in. Ooh, that does not. We want you to.
Spencer, I'll just tell you my logic. I know that everybody's at a Chip and Joanna Airbnb now in Emporia. That's all I see when people are producing content. I stayed at one of, I think, 3 motels that was available 2 years. And I can tell you that both of those years, there were some active, let's just put it this way, some active situations with many cases of beers and perhaps other stuff going on in the environment around me.
You're seeing the wheels of, Super 8 Wyndham at the Topeka airport, $77 a night. You're 15 minutes away. That's it right there.
I know you have to run, Spencer. I'm wondering if a good friend of ours and someone who's a big fan of this show might know a set of brothers in Wichita who might have a place for me to stay. I'm not going to name them, but I'm just wondering if they might have something up their sleeve, and perhaps they could fly me in the day of the event. That'd be a short hop.
The old Wichita to Emporia flight. Let's see. You could do that. Can you imagine if you're staying at their house?
I'm sure they have a helicopter, right? Couldn't they helicopter me
Probably
over there?
A safe place to helicopter. No mountains, good visibility. That's a good idea, actually.
No, there are no weather events in the middle of summer.
Dude, that actually is freaky to think about. Well, also, did you see Modern Adventures Pro Cycling going to Paris-Roubaix? That's a big invite.
I did.
Wow.
Yeah, well, George always did well at Paris-Roubaix. I'm sure he has a close association.
Yeah, and right? I guess, these one-day races get big start lists. It's not like the Grand Tours where it's a little bit more limited. They get a lot of starts. So, yeah, you get George Hincapie back at Roubaix. That's probably good for Roubaix. They might need Cam Jones. Or you see Cam Jones out there racing Paris-Roubaix for Modern Adventures Pro Cycling.
Yeah, maybe Modern Adventures will step in on the Shakeout ride. We'll see what kind of partnership we might forge.
We're gonna talk to some people about this. But thank you, Andrew, and we will be back next week.